Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we're talking election legal drama, the Bundy standoff acquittal, and more on Justice is Served.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Welcome, Black Hollywood Live fans. You are watching Justice is Served, where we bring you the latest in legal news every week. And boy, do we have quite a spate of different cases to go over.
Yeah, we do.
Some very interesting stories. My name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
We can find you all over. Dang. I think I'll just limit myself to Twitter and Instagram at Chelsea Galicia.
Well, you must have been a little excited because I know you have an election show, Hillary versus Trump, on,
Yes.
what is it, Tuesdays?
Yes, every Tuesday. And then this coming week, because of the election, we're going to have like a 3-hour special where we combine BHL's political culture and AfterBuzz TV's Trump versus Hillary into like a 3-hour show. We hope you'll be making a guest appearance on it.
Yes, I will stop in. And next Tuesday, I'm so excited because finally the season will be over.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we've seen will be kind of behind us.
Yeah.
I'm hoping in the right direction.
Yeah. What's really exciting about our show and why I invite you to tune in is that we're going to be watching the live chat during the show, as we always do on Trump versus Hillary, and really bringing in your comments. And we're also going to be asking you what's going on in your state, the propositions and things like that. So we're going to make it an interactive shit show. I had to say that because I'm not sure if I'm going to be bringing wine or champagne or both, but I've been told that as long as I keep it together, I can have that because it's either going to be quasi-celebratory or I'm going to need to drink away my sorrows.
Let's just hope it's an early landslide victory night, right? Well, we have more election drama. So we get James Comey now, 11 days before the election, delivering this sort of jaw-dropping letter to congressional Republicans. What did you think of this timing, and what legal trouble might he be in?
Well, the timing is really not only terrible for Hillary's campaign, but just they don't do that. There is a standing policy within the Department of Justice and the FBI that they don't release any comments, say anything about anything that's going to affect the election within 60 days. And clearly 11 days out is within that 60 days. And so there are a lot of people, even conservatives, that came out and said, this is not cool, he shouldn't have said that. And then I saw sort of his reasoning why, and then I had a little bit of compassion, I guess, for the dilemma he was in.
Well, so the reasoning is he felt he made a public statement that the election was closed, that the investigation was closed,
right.
And he felt he needed to supplement the record, if not to mislead the American people.
Right. Except that it's like this bombshell, but like the bomb is made out of like flour.
But here's the issue, at least for me. First of all, he went to the Justice Department and his staff said, "Can we do this?" Or what are your thoughts on the matter? And they said it's unprecedented and something we don't do.
Yeah.
Lynch and Yates, apparently their staff relayed, "Don't do this." He goes ahead and does it.
But they legally have no way to stop him.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of going for an advisory opinion.
Exactly, which obviously was ignored. But then the letter and the vagueness of the letter. Do you really think it was about misleading the American people when they didn't even have a warrant to look at these emails that they had found?
And that's the part where we didn't even find out about that detail until a few days later, where there's no search warrant, and so we don't really know. We don't know at all what those emails are, that they could be completely nothing. They could be repeats of what we've already seen or known about. And the whole reason that this thing came about is because the FBI is literally searching for dick pics on Anthony Weiner's. I mean, this writes itself. Computer, a laptop, because of an investigation that he was sending these pictures to underage girls.
So to our listeners, if you don't know, Huma Abedin, Clinton's top aide, was married to Anthony Weiner, and she indicated she doesn't know where these emails could have possibly come from. But I believe it was one of the devices she had mentioned that was in the household that she had access to.
When she testified months and months ago, she told them, or if she didn't tell them, they never asked about all the devices.
Yeah.
So
I believe she disclosed this device, but she believed that there should be no emails on this device.
But they didn't look into the device, and it's only coming up now because of this Anthony Weiner investigation.
And not only was this letter, vague, they had no warrant. We're also hearing that there's no actual emails from the Clinton email server.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no evidence that any of these emails were to or from Hillary.
Yeah.
So it's like this looks like it could be this big huge thing, and then it's nothing. I would think that the Republicans even would be like, okay, we're glad the investigation's going, but we cannot take this and run with it like it's like it says something. This is what I call people out a lot for talking a lot without saying anything.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this letter is, and that's what this whole hoopla has become. And then it just raises the whole issue about, is the FBI acting legally? Like, should they have done this?
Yeah. Does it violate election law?
And we're looking at potentially a violation of the Hatch Act.
Yeah.
Which said, this is back from like 93, which says that somebody who's in an office like the FBI or the Department of Justice can't use that position to try and sway an election.
Yes, and so the Hatch Act is not a criminal act, but it is an act that would affect his position. He could be demoted or fired as a result. And so it looks like, at least to me, and given the weight of evidence, because now we're also hearing the FBI has released some files about Bill Clinton that were previously closed, and they did so revealing this on Twitter, which is something they hadn't done in over a year. And we're hearing they're possibly investigating ties with Trump and Russia, but something they're not disclosing. So there seems to be a little bit of a double standard.
Yeah, it is very bizarre that now I see a lot of memes and stuff on Facebook are all like, oh my gosh, this is the first time that a presidential candidate has entered into an election with an ongoing FBI investigation, which I think says more about the FBI than it does about her. But let's not forget that Trump himself has got a slew of legal cases awaiting him. Yeah. Sexual assault, rape of a child.
The FBI is supposedly investigating him right now for the ties that his server may have had with this Russian bank.
Right, the fraud and scam with Trump University. All these legal issues are still pending against him too. So it is weird to watch like the pendulum just go back and forth so crazily in a matter of days.
And I will say, I wonder about Huma Abedin, because she, here's this device with these emails, and she's obviously been on record about testifying. I mean, she's given sworn statements to the FBI regarding these devices. So if they do find anything contradictory to what she said, she could find herself in a lot of legal trouble. And it looks as though she stopped traveling with the campaign, though I think she is working from the headquarters in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think she's kind of laying low for a couple of days, and I think she'll be, back on the scene pretty soon.
But they are expressing confidence.
Now, we may get another surprise from one of the campaigns before the election comes in all of 6 days. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it's certainly like a legal quagmire all around. But well, I guess we will.
It'll give us enough stuff to talk about probably until the midterm elections.
Yeah, so I guess we're
just
looking forward to that.
Just between these two,
I suppose. Okay, well, our next story involves what some would say is a shock acquittal. We got the Bundy 7, Eamon Bundy, and 6 others who were acquitted of this sort of standoff. They were charged with, what was it? Illegally occupying federal lands.
And there were also firearms charges and conspiracy to impede federal workers. Yeah. One of them was also charged with conspiracy, and one of them was also charged with theft.
Yeah. So here this acquittal is, but it's coming on the heels of this protest right now going on in Oregon with the Standing
in North Dakota.
In North Dakota, sorry. With the Standing Rock Sioux. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this year, it's already November. I'm speaking about it like it's already done. But like, if we look at this year and this year of protests, we've had a continuation of the protests of the Black Lives Matter movement because of the numerous excessive force, police killings of unarmed black people. Then at the beginning of the year, we started off with these like 7 or so armed white men, like a militia that was taking over this federal
41
land.
days, yeah.
For 41 days. And then now we've got the Native Americans and a lot of people who support them in trying to fight off this Dakota Access Pipeline from being built through some of their sacred land, and that would go over a river that, if it became contaminated, would completely ruin them.
And there's not many safeguards that in the act that approved this pipeline. There's not many safeguards regarding the water quality and to make sure it does not environmentally impact harmfully the environment.
Right. So we look at these 3 movements, these 3 protests, and we see the way that law enforcement and the government handles each of them. The first one, like you said, in Oregon with the white militia, went on for 40 some odd days.
And they were armed, yeah.
They were armed. One person was killed, but it was deemed to be justifiable, and nobody seems to be up in arms about that because he literally did reach for a firearm,
With
and
the-
those
by the
people
FBI agent,
and
yeah.
those people were armed.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was allowed to go on peacefully, air quotes, for 40 some odd days,
Yeah.
and then
And we've
they
already
were
seen,
tried.
Yeah.
All of them acquitted.
Yeah, and we've already seen the riots in Ferguson and how that was taken care of. And we've seen Humvees and helicopters now with the Standing Rock Sioux who are peacefully protesting, but there's been some violence on both sides.
Right. So we see the armed people were the white guy. They were acquitted of everything.
Yeah.
And then there's still some federal charges to face, but the state charges completely exonerated by sympathetic jury.
Yeah.
And the way that they were spoken about in the media was like, these guys are standing up for their rights and for standing up against federal overreach.
Crusaders, yeah, almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Cowboys and like glorified almost.
Rather than people that in some ways are committing treason or...
Right, and then when you have black people protesting the killing of innocent people, or you have Native Americans trying to protect their land, then these two are either ignored, these groups are ignored, or they're called names and just treated like they are, like, what are you doing, people? Come on, get over it. And only recently are we seeing any news media coverage of the Dakota Access Pipeline, and it's all because nearly 1 million people checked in to Standing Rock yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, it's the social media that's driving the acknowledgement of what's taking place.
Yeah, and that was actually very cool. I think the original intent in everybody checking in was to throw off law enforcement from being able to investigate the people who were really at Standing Rock.
Yeah.
And so there was a thing that went around, said, hey, everybody check in because it will help confuse law enforcement and slow down their efforts in arresting and investigating us.
Yeah,
and so nearly 1 million people, probably by now over 1 million people, have checked in, and it has proved to be this great standing of solidarity. It sort of went beyond what the original intent was. And so now the media is covering it, but the movement itself was sort of left alone, and you got to go out and search for it in order to see anything about it.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's really unfortunate, but, I mean, this pipeline, it said it will span 4 states, South Dakota, North Dakota, Illinois, and Iowa, and it will be able to produce up to 374 gallons of gas per day and reduce our reliance on foreign oil. So you have a real balance versus government interest and, respecting these ancient burial rights. And
well, not only that, but this was land, history lesson that Americans, or we weren't even Americans when we took it. We just showed up, took over the land, and then we gave them land, and then now we're tramping over the land that we gave them, and they have really valid concerns. The burial grounds and the water. And the water is something that everybody should be concerned about. It's not just them. They're really fighting on behalf
and their
of
food
all
security
of us.
as well.
Absolutely. And so it's not like the oil is the only way. Just last Friday, Elon Musk unveiled these new solar panel roofs that instead of these big things that go on top of your roof, it's built into the roof shingles themselves. And people are, oh, that's probably very expensive. It's actually less expensive if you... Well, they haven't come out with the prices of those yet, but I was looking into solar anyways before this announcement came out. And if you look at like the 30-year projection, you're actually saving money. It's a little like a timeshare. It's like you get your electricity, the price of it up front, and then
over time, it sort of
Right. So there are companies trying to come up with alternative solutions to this energy problem, and there's actually also a great documentary that you've got to see now.
Wow.
It was Leonardo DiCaprio and National Geographic. It's called Beyond the Flood. And he goes around the world looking at the problem, and Elon Musk is interviewed there. But it's not like we don't have other solutions and other feasible solutions. They are feasible. People like to say that they exist, but we're still 20 years away from making them a reality. Actually, we're not.
Here,
And if we remove things like the pipeline as an option, we would get on this quicker. And I understand that people are reluctant to change and nervous about change, and it's going to cost, and it's an inconvenience. But really, people, we got to get it together, and we got to get it together quickly. And so I don't have very much on the balance of, but we should do the pipeline.
Well, the tribe has sued the United States Army Corps of Engineers who approved this pipeline, and so I guess we'll be following up with that and seeing how that case impacts what takes place.
But the deeper issue is that we all now, as Americans, have this really great illustration of how protesters are treated based on what race you are.
Yeah.
There is a privileged protesting group for sure.
And I hope that somehow translates to law enforcement. We have another story coming up about, oversight of law enforcement, so we'll get into a little bit of that later, but we do have a word from our sponsor.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So how is your fantasy football season going? Are you playing?
It's a fantasy.
Well, you better start. What's that you say? Your starting running back has already pulled both hamstrings and your sleeper pick is still sleeping? Hey, I didn't write the jokes. Well, it's not too late to save your sleeper. It's not too late to save your season and win huge cash prizes at DraftKings.com. DraftKings is the destination for one-week fantasy football. That means no season-long commitments to bust and bench warmers. Never again will injuries have you combing the waiver wire at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, do you know at all what I just said?
Not at all.
I'll have to teach you. Every week is a brand new season at DraftKings. Just pick your contest, draft your team, and follow the action live. Renew old rivalries with friends and play them every week. Or try 50-50 contest where the top half of all entries win cash. Even if your current fantasy team is circling the drain, you can still win huge cash prizes at DraftKings. So there's money to be made.
Good to know.
Don't wait. Start your new season at DraftKings.com now. Use code BSports and play free with your first deposit. That's code BSPORTS to play free for your share of over $1 million in total prizes this weekend.
Wouldn't it be great if I did that and then I won?
Oh, your first time out? Yeah.
Right. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, beginner's luck. Only at DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See site for details. Thank you, DraftKings.
Thank you. Yes. All right. I mean, I should know so much more.
We've been doing this for a while. You got to get on and play.
I know. I know.
Well, I guess in a bit of positive news, we have the LA Oversight Board.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about this, but it's a civilian board that is going to be kind of providing some oversight to the police.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, the LA County Board of Supervisors thought we need a board, an oversight board to help handle the complaints from the public, and this would oversee the sheriff's department. Mm-hmm. So 2 years in the making, and then just yesterday it was announced who was on this board, and and already the criticism has begun.
Well, I heard, so they got 9 members, and I'm hearing there's only 1 Hispanic and no Asians.
That's true.
And Hispanics of this area make up 50% of the population.
Right. You would think that, LA County, we're approaching about 50% of the population, and we got 1.
So despite the underrepresentation, what I was a little bit concerned about was, does this oversight group really have any teeth?
Yeah, it looks like it might not.
Yeah.
They look to be they were picked by members of the County Board of Supervisors, and so it could be that they're just sort of under their thumb or just sort of at their control, or puppets on their string. Who knows? It remains to be seen how truly independent they'll be and how sort of tough or really strong that they'll be.
And the sheriff doesn't report to them; he still reports to the board.
Right. So this is a way for members of the public to be able to air grievances either to the sheriff personally, like they're at these meetings, or to his representative. I mean.
But they can't they can't fire the sheriff. They can't, penalize him. They can't dismiss him. They can't.
Right.
No behavioral.
Right. All they can do is advise and suggest and listen and, build bridges and, the feel-good stuff that we can't see how effective it'll be until they actually are faced with the situation.
So I'm hoping it's more than just sort of placating the public.
Yeah, and one of the other big criticisms was that there's not one member of the Black Lives Matter movement that was asked to be on it, not a co-founder, not anybody. Yeah. And interestingly enough, so I saw this story on the news. The executive director was named. His name is Brian Williams, and he was asked about that criticism, and he said, well, you can't please everyone. And I thought, man, he'd be an interesting guy to have on the show. So I go today. I still cannot believe that this happened literally 4 hours ago. I was invited to go to a nonprofit's fundraiser luncheon today with somebody who's on my board for the Financially Fit Foundation. So sorry, but I wasn't thinking about this show. I totally went in as executive director of the Financially Fit Foundation to this big, ballroom luncheon at the Butler Hotel, and the program begins, and they're introducing people, and then they say over the loud, the microphone, "Please welcome our CEO, Brian Williams." And I nearly fell out of my chair with chicken on my fork. Oh, wow. I Googled, I made sure because I thought I was going crazy. I looked at the picture online, I looked at the guy speaking at the front of the room, and I'm like, I think this is him.
So did we get him on? Are we going to have him on?
So sure enough, right after he was done speaking, I booked it to him like a crazy woman, and I had to ask him, I'm like, are you the same Brian Williams that was just, named executive director? And he said, yes. And I said, well, wouldn't you know, we got this little show, Justice is Served on Black Hollywood Live. Would you like to be on it? And he said yes. So hopefully that was a genuine yes. He did give me his contact information, so I'll be reaching out to him, and perhaps we could have him on as soon as next week, if not the week after that. And then we'll take any questions that you all submit to us through Twitter about what really do you want to know from this guy. We'll be asking him the basics of, who are you to run this, and how effective will this be, and what do you think of the criticisms that have been laid out against them? But I just couldn't believe that happened to me today.
I just think that's such a valid criticism, though, that they're not including someone from the Black Lives Matter movement on this board. Part of me wants to say you don't necessarily want to do that because you don't want to inflame tensions, but at the same time, the reason the board was created was because of this movement, because of what's taking place with the black people.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I would be excited to hear it straight from Brian Williams' mouth. What he thinks about that. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
So yeah, that'll be wonderful.
Or actually, as you taught me, the reason why that happened, I loosely believe in this manifesting stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
you gotta manifest.
But this has never happened to me before. I've seen it happen to other people, and you said the reason why is because I sent the rundown written in a way, because I thought I was saying, hey, maybe we can have this guy on. Yeah. The way you read it, you thought I had said, let's have this guy on, as if I already knew him. And that's how I made this thing happen.
When you put things out in the universe, I believe they return to you. So I think manifestation worked for you in this case.
I love it. If I can just remember how I did that forever, that would be really awesome.
Yeah, you learn as you go, but that's awesome. But I guess we have another case where a little oversight did work, but it certainly took a long time coming. Sheriff Joe Arpaio has officially been charged with criminal contempt, and he has a hearing coming up December 6th in Phoenix.
Yes.
Now, this has been just a long saga, so it took far too long here. I wish he did have an oversight board. How did we get here?
So this is a sheriff who has been really big on cracking down on illegal immigration, and he's resorted to pretty aggressive tactics, very clear racial profiling, and a judge told him to knock it off. And there was an order for him to cease this specific program where he was just really pulling everyone and anyone over, and he defied the order. He said, it was bizarre. He acknowledged that he was in violation, but said it was unintentional.
Yeah.
Not really sure how that happens. And so he sort of kept at it for another year.
Yeah, we know it was quite intentional.
Right. And so this guy, he's 84 years old, and he's running again to be sheriff of Maricopa County, Arizona. And in the midst of this, he's now going to be facing trial, which was originally set for December 6th. And I just saw that his attorneys were successful in getting it delayed. There's not a new trial date set. So he's being successful in pushing it off even further. Yeah. And then remains to be seen whether November 8th, sorry, I'm like Trump not knowing the election day, whether he'll still be sheriff when this trial goes down. It'll be very interesting to see how this impacts voters. Yeah,
it's crazy. It all stemmed from a 2007 lawsuit, and here we are so many years later,
and he's still at it.
Yeah,
and this was one of the things that I was like, Donald Trump had Sheriff Joe Arpaio up on stage at the convention as he's declaring himself the law and order candidate. And I'm like, your little minion over here is violating the law. He's been told to stop this, to stop violating people's constitutional rights. He refuses to do it.
I don't think it's any mistake that he was there. You know,
I just kind of scratch my head that people don't see the blatant discrepancy, contradiction in having Sheriff Joe Arpaio be your, spokesperson, and then calling yourself the law and order candidate.
Well, he's going to appeal to a certain group, a certain swath, and if
who doesn't understand hypocrisy.
And if that's your base, if that's you're putting on two people that they both view as law and order people, and that's certainly going to play with that group.
Okay, that's that. It's so heartbreaking. The number of people that I see, like personally on Facebook, who like support, Trump now, and I'm like, oh wait, these are why Sheriff Joe Arpaio and people like him are still around.
It tends to be people that they think if you've committed a crime, you deserve zero rights. That if you're a felon, you should be stripped of everything. There's no path to redemption. And at least that's the theme that I have seen. This is the same guy who in 1993 had that tent prison that they said was inhumane, and he tried to do it to save cost. So I think what you're seeing is part and parcel par for the course for Donald Trump, and it's unfortunate, but it's people have a decision to make, and that's why we vote. So
yeah,
we might be in the minority. Who knows?
Right.
So in another case of a little justice being served, we get Ryan Collins, the Hollywood hacker who in 2014 hacked a bunch of nude photos of some of the biggest celebrities. I think we had Jennifer Lawrence, Gabby Union, Kate Upton, amongst others. Over 600.
600 people, and that's important for me. That the number of victims whose computers or phones he hacked into and then released nude pictures of them.
And so you might say he gets 18 months in federal prison.
Well, the way this went down was pretty interesting to me. He took a plea deal.
Yeah.
And he could have faced 5 years.
Yeah.
The prosecutors recommended 18. The judge went along with it, gave him 18 months.
Yeah, and he was never found. While they found he hacked the information, they never found any evidence of him distributing the information. So I think he would have been, would have had more time to serve had they been able to have that evidence behind him. But they didn't.
Right, but I still don't see how 18 months is fair. It is not, to me, justice is served.
Well, I agree, except they didn't have evidence of the distribution of it, the publication of it, and so that's where it turned. So all they could do was get him on felony computer hacking.
That's a pretty. It's not. It's one charge, sure, felony computer hacking, but you have 600 victims. Let's do the math on this.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm being harsh on this guy just because, like, I'm a woman. I would hate to be hacked and have nude photos put out to the world. But just look at it this way: 18 months is approximately 547 or so days. 600 victims. That means he's doing about a day in federal prison for each victim. You think that's justice? 1 day in prison for each victim?
I don't think it's justice when I think about the distribution of that kind of private material. It's just that he wasn't charged with the distribution of the private material.
But hacking into 600 people's computers
essentially what that to me is doing is like looking in someone's window from the yard, looking in someone's bedroom window. So if you're peeping Tom, you don't get as much as if you were to take a picture of that person and then distribute it on the internet and publish it. That's how I have made the.
Well, congratulations on reconciling that one, because I don't. It doesn't seem to me the same. And a peeping Tom who did it 600 times, you think he's only going to get 18 months? You get maybe 18 months for 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 people. 600?
If there were 600 people in the room and he peeped in, that's what it's like.
But all of these 600 victims.
It was an email phishing scam. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like he looked into one window. It wasn't one act of hacking that got him access to all 600 of these.
Well, I think the phishing scam was like one act. So one thing gets sent to all these people.
If I were a victim, I would be pretty livid.
Once again, if he distributed them, I think he should get far more time. It's just they didn't have the evidence to then make that deal. But I think if they find the evidence, then he will get a lot more time. So just based on what he was charged with, I feel like it was a fair thing. But certainly, when I think of the totality of circumstances,
just for felony computer hacking, he could have faced 5 years.
Yeah, but I just think of the instance of it, 18 months. 18 months to 5 years, I think is.
It's a pretty long
I think of the
It's a whole election. That's over 4. I mean, just think about that. That is between now and the next election versus not even the midterm
to me,
election.
when it comes to
everything now is in terms of an election cycles.
To me, when it comes to felony computer hacking, I'm thinking more of the sophistication of the hacking itself when I'm determining. That's how I view it.
And not the number of victims. But the law should be centered around justice for the victims.
Victim, yeah.
I mean, criminals still maintain rights.
18 months in federal prison is still no picnic.
I hope not. I hope it's a I hope it's a nude pic. If he had to do the whole thing nude, maybe that would be justice.
Well, I think you pretty much have to. I'm sure you lose that privacy in prison. So, well, hopefully 18 months has a chilling effect on the other hackers and certainly a deterrent effect for him. But that is all the stories we have for today.
So that is our last show before we know who the next president is.
Yeah, it could be a very interesting show next week. I may not show up depending on the results.
Or I may show up still with the bottle of wine clinging to it from the night before.
So,
and I'm not really a drinker. I'm making myself sound to me like a bit of an alcoholic. But I mean, I just see that there are a lot of consequences for our choice, and not just on the presidential election, but going down ballot. There's a lot. If we can flip the Senate to Democratic majority, then we could have Bernie Sanders be the chair of the Budget Senate Committee, which would be so exciting for me. And there's some propositions that I'm really interested in the outcomes. 61, that's about the cost of prescription medication. The drug companies have spent over $100 million trying to defeat it. That's why if you're here in LA at least and you watch TV, every other commercial is about 61, and most of them are against it, even though I've looked into it and I really believe very strongly that it's a good proposition. We should vote yes. And the scare tactic that they're trying to use is, if you vote yes on this, the price of your prescription medications are going to go up. But you know what? They've been going up anyways.
Well, we know the whole deal with the EpiPen, and now that company is being looked at by Congress. So. But
here's the thing: there's no law that guy violated. So they can make fun of him. I mean, they already had him testify, and they were asking, and the guy was smirking and laughing because they can't do anything to him because the drug companies have been able to write the rules such that there is no regulation or control of them. They regulate themselves. And so that 61 is one that I'm really keeping an eye on. It's one that Bernie endorses, and I hope that everyone votes yes on that one. I'm also interested in 64, which is the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, and that one's looking like it's about close to 60% approval, so it'll be interesting to see.
But it looks like implementation will be a long ways in coming if it does pass.
Yeah, but almost immediately anybody could at least possess a small amount. Without a doctor of rec.
Yeah, but certainly for obtaining that would probably maybe be about 2018.
Yeah, and then Prop 59 is a big deal, even though what you hear about it is that it has no legal effect. This is California's response to Citizens United, and Citizens United we talk about kind of a lot on this show about how it said that corporations are people have the rights of free speech, money is free speech, therefore corporations can pour in as much money into these elections as they want. And when we do the numbers after the election about how much money has been put into this, it will floor you. And when you can't get Congress to pass legislation because Congress itself is controlled by these entities, there's another way that we as voters can get around that, and we state by state can vote to force basically a constitutional convention to have them vote on or force them this is a little bit more intricate than I can explain at the moment, but it's to have a constitutional convention that would overturn Citizens United. It is California sending a message that we do not like Citizens United and we want it to be overturned. And when enough states do this, I believe it's 2/3, then you force a convention on it. So people are like, oh, but it has no legal consequences. It doesn't matter. Vote no. It's got a huge consequence. And so I would encourage you to vote yes on that one. There's a couple other ones, but I want to give you a shot to be passionate about your propositions.
Well, no, I'm just passionate about the election itself. I haven't really paid too much attention to the propositions here in California. But
yeah, we've got some interesting ones. We've got 62, which would overturn the death penalty, turn that into life without parole. I don't think that one's polling all that well. I think we're heading in that direction, but I think it's too soon.
Yeah.
As progressive as California is, I don't think we are ready for that. I think that one's going to go down. But there's a couple... there's some really interesting stuff on there.
I've got my homework.
Oh, yeah. With my friends, we're doing a proposition powwow. So Sunday, we're all getting together over brunch or something and going to go over all of these and talk it out and see how we can provide input into each other, into what our thinking is behind these, and make it a fun social thing.
Yeah.
You're definitely welcome to come.
And we'd encourage certainly our viewers and our listeners to do the same. You know, get educated, stay informed, go out and vote November 8th, and I guess we'll see you guys
and meet
here.
back here.
Yeah, we'll be back here November 9th.
And don't forget to come and check us out on Trump versus Hillary and political culture next week, starting at 6 p.m. going till 9 p.m. We'll see how long I last. So you'll be laughing or crying. I don't know. I'll be very interested to see how I emotionally react to this. I may have nothing. Thank God,
we're manifesting
or whatever.
just positive feelings. You're going to have a great night.
And I really do hope that you come by, and then make sure that everybody's tweeting, Instagram, Snapchatting you, all sorts of stuff, so that you can bring that back to the viewers.
You got it, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back next week. My name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
And me at Chelsea Galicia.
And we'll see you guys next week.
With a brand new president.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.